Hi friends, it's Deanna here today, and today we're going to be making the Be Kind tunic top and dress, and this is super cute and pretty easy. So we're gonna go ahead and do it really quickly, and I think we're gonna have fun. So before I get started though, let me remind you of our fun giveaway, a $50 Ellie and my gift certificate, and that happens every month. And all you have to do is subscribe to our channel and comment below, and you are entered to win a $50 Ellie and my gift certificate. Like I said, it happens every month, so you have lots of chances to win. So go ahead and do that if you're not subscribed. Subscribe, comment below, and you're entered. All right, so let's get started. Once again, I'm making the Be Kind. And this is an Ellie and Mac pattern. I printed out my pattern, cut out my pieces already, and we are ready to go. All right, so I'm grabbing, first off, actually, if you are making the B option of your bodice, I'm making the other option, I'm making the one that I cut on the fold. If you're making the B option, you would have cut 2 pieces for the front. So what you would do is you would place your one piece right side up and the other piece right on top of it, right side down, right sides touching, and you would sew the raw edge right here to make it one whole piece. Okay, so go ahead and do that if you're doing option B with the 2 fronts, and that you will put it together there. You can sew with a zigzag stitch or with your serger if you're using your serger. Let me move back so you can see it better. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and go, and whatever option you're using, we go from here, same steps. We're gonna grab our bodice front and back, and we're gonna meet it right sides together at the shoulders, and we're gonna sew those shoulders together. You can use a stretch stitch on your sewing machine. You could use a serger. Either one will work because the top is a knit. You have to use something stretch that will let it stretch. So we're gonna go ahead and sew those shoulders together. One shoulder. 2 shoulders together. Okay, now we're gonna open it up, and you're going to see that there is the little arch for your arm side. We're gonna grab our sleeve. First thing I'm gonna do is, since it's folded already, I'm gonna put a little notch at the tippy top. This is the side, this is the top of the side of the sleeve, because then that way it gives me a mark. If you don't wanna put a notch, you don't have to. You can just mark it, put a pin there. But I make a little tiny notch. It is tiny, so when you sew it on, you won't even be able to see it once you sew it on. But I wanna make sure I mark it, because that is what's gonna go right on that shoulder seam. That is your half of your sleeve. It's gonna go right on the shoulder seam. And we're gonna go seam to seam all the way down around the shoulder area. And then all the way down to the side. So you're just spinning right sides together, raw edges together. And that's what we're gonna sew. Right sides together, raw edges together. You kind of have to turn the whole thing because it's a curved edge, so you're curving around as you're going around the whole thing. So it will be kind of curved. When you sew, you kind of sew up and around. You kind of just let the fabric move. Don't try to pull it so tight that you're trying to figure it out and you're getting aggravated with it because it's rolling on you or whatever. You kind of just want to move all the fabric with it as you're pinning along the side. And you're not really stretching, you're just kind of pinning. And turn again and pin. So you kind of just let the fabric do its thing, with fabric, you have to be stern with it, like tell it what to do, but you also have to give it a little bit of leeway. And actually with knits, it's great for that because you can actually give it a little bit of leeway and it still doesn't affect your garment because it stretches. So we're gonna go ahead and sew along the raw edge, sew those 2 together, the sleeve and the bodice together. All right, we've sewn the sleeves on. And what we always kind of want to do is go back and steam. So that way those seams are kind of going the same way and it gives it a better look to the fabric so it's not wavy. when it's going like the seam, sometimes if you look at it, it can be going like back and forth, and then the front will look kind of wavy. So we want to make sure that that's right, straight, so that way it doesn't get wavy. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and fold it right sides together, and we're gonna sew those sides. So we're gonna sew at the armpit area, up and over those two sides, okay? So that we can basically create our bodice. I'm gonna go ahead and sew those sides together. Whoop, floop. Let's do it. All right, our sides are sewn together. So now we can go ahead and hem our sleeves. You're gonna hem a 1/2 inch. So you're gonna fold up a 1/2 inch of your hem allowance, and then you can go ahead and hem in your preferred method. Okay, there's one. Here's another one. And I don't even measure anymore. I just kind of eyeball it. Okay, so it is hemmed. I'll go hem it in a minute, but let me go ahead and show you how we're going to do our neckband. And our bodice is basically finished. Then we'll move on to our skirt. Okay, so here's my neckband. I'm gonna fold it wrong sides together. Wrong sides together. To give it a memory crease. Fold it in half, wrong sides together to make it a memory crease. Then we're gonna open it up. And we're gonna meet the two raw edges, short raw edges, right sides together. And we're gonna sew that raw edge to create a band. Bond. Now we have a band. There we go. Now we're gonna go ahead and fold it right at that fold line we already created, right sides together. We're gonna pin this edge, papoon. We're gonna go to from that edge to the front, and we're gonna quarter it. So we're gonna mark the half and pin. We're gonna meet the front and the half together, and we're gonna go to the sides. Ow. Ouchie. And those are gonna be my quarters. 1 and 2. And we're gonna do the same to our neckband. We're gonna quarter it. We're gonna grab our shoulder seams, meet them together. We're gonna go to the front, frontity front. We're gonna grab shoulders together again, go to the backity back. Those are my halves. Now your shoulders are not your quarters, because if you match the front and the back and you go to your shoulder, okay, this is not a very good example because it's a little tiny size, but as you get bigger, there is much more room between your shoulder seam and where the front is supposed to be, because your front is lower, so it's farther up from your shoulder seam. And if you don't quarter correctly, then you'll have a neckband that's really stretched out in the front and really loose in the back, and you don't want that. So you want to make sure you quarter every time. Then we're going to go ahead and match up our quarter points with our neckband and our neck. And you're doing right sides together, and the raw edges are at the top. So the raw edge of your band and the raw edge of your bodice, they're both up at the top, and you're just pinning to those quarter points. Now, if you want to pin more than just the quarter points, you can. There's no law that says you can't. See, just like so. And then we're gonna go ahead and pin and stretch as you sew that on. So the two of them together, the band and the bodice, you're gonna stretch enough so that you can meet both of them together and you'll sew it. So let's do that. And we're almost done. We're done with our bodice. Now we just need our skirt. Our neckband is done. Make sure everything got cut on your neckband when you sewed it up. You're gonna turn it, flip it, and steam it. I wanna make sure all my seam is going down when I steam it so it looks nice and even. Bodice is done. Now if you wanna go back and top stitch that neckline to give it a more professional look, you can go ahead and do that right now. But we're gonna move on to our skirt. So if you're doing trimming, now you can do this before or after. I like to do it before because then I can attach my skirts together after. But this part you can do either now or after. What I'm gonna do is you can grab your two skirts, put them right sides together. If you're just hemming, you can go ahead and do this part. Sew your sides together of your skirt. You can sew it in your sewing machine, but you want to finish the raw edges probably with a zigzag stitch or something so they don't fray. So you're sewing your two sides together to make one whole circle skirt, and then you will hem. And how you will hem woven, you will do fold up 1/4 inch and then fold up another 1/4 inch again, steam, and then you're gonna edge stitch if you're doing hem. But I am doing trim, and I want to go ahead and put it on first before I sew the sides together, because that way I don't have to put all of it. I can put all of it on, and then I don't have to worry about putting a whole circle on. So I'm just gonna do half and half. I'm gonna put it right sides together. Where's the right side of my trim? This way. Right sides together at the edge of my skirt. Now I did not have the pattern called for a 2.5 inch trim, and I didn't have, this is a 1.5 inch trim. So what I did is I compensated that by adding an extra, like not cutting off, you know how at the end of the skirt when you're cutting the pattern out, it has a line on it, and it says if you added trim, cut at this line. Well, that line is 2.5 inches wide, so I shortened it by 1 inch. So that way, because my trim is it's 1 inch shorter than what it called for, so I compensated for that. So I pinned it along the raw edge, and now I'm gonna go ahead and sew it on the raw edge of my skirt. And I am gonna do that for all my skirt bottoms that I'm using trim with. If you're using trim with all of them, then you're gonna do it to all of them. And I'm pinning it right sides together to my skirt, and I'm going to sew it on at the raw edge. I'm not gathering the ruffle. I'm not the lace or anything. I'm just sewing it right straight to my skirt. And I'm gonna do the same for all pieces. So my front, because I'm doing it to both layers of the skirt. All right. So once your lace is on, your trim, you're going to steam it, steam the edge. And I'm gonna steam it, making my seam go up towards the top of the skirt. And then we're gonna go back and top stitch with our sewing machine that ruffle down at the seam. So we're top stitching. All right. It is top stitched, and I am going to trim a little bit right here at the edges. So now what I'm going to do, now that I have it top stitched, both my front and back, now I'm going to put it right on top of each other, and I'm going to sew those sides together, side seams. Now you could do this before you put that ruffle on. You could do it after. This is up to you. It's my preference to do it after, just because I wanted to put that ruffle on first, half and half, and not have to go in a whole round circle. So it's up to you. So I'm gonna sew those sides together. All right, so the one thing about sewing the sides together after is that now you have that little tail right there. Well, that's okay, because what I do is I fold that tail down over the seam, just the seam, and then I go back on my sewing machine and I do a zigzag stitch right over that tail and tuck it into my seam. I do that for all sides, and then you don't even see it, especially when I'm using this nice lace for my trim, and you use the same color thread. Can't even see it. Now I'm just trimming the excess, and my bottom of my skirt has been, see, can't even see it, put together. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to grab both of my skirts, because I did up to both of my skirts already. This is my top skirt, this is my bottom skirt. I'm gonna grab both of my skirts, and I'm going to put my bodice right here, and I'm gonna gather my skirts the width of my bodice so that they match up to the width of my bodice right here, my waistband. So I'm gonna grab it, and how I like to gather my skirts is I use a long stitch on my sewing machine, and I go all the way around, and sometimes I hold the tension just a little bit, and it will help me gather a little bit. It gathers itself a little bit, not very much. I don't hold it too tight. I know some people say that's not good for your sewing machine. I haven't had any issues with my sewing machine, but if you don't think it's good for your sewing machine, then don't do it. I wouldn't do it. I think some sewing machines are a little bit pickier than others. But if you can change your tension on your sewing machine, if you change it a little bit, it'll gather it up a little bit for you. Like I said, I'm not holding it that tight. If the tighter I hold it, the more it gathers, but I don't really want to hold it too tight because I don't want to do that. But anyway, and then what I'll do is I'll grab where I ended. See right there, I ended, and then I'll pull to gather. But one thing I forgot to do that I like to do before I gather is I like to find my front and my back. See, here's my side seams, but I want to find the front and the back so I know how much I'm going to gather in each quarter section. Because then I'll match the front and the back to the front and the back of the top bodice. So I want to make sure that I'm gathering it enough on all sides. Okay. So now I'm going to grab where I ended, and I'm going to pull one piece of thread, and I'm going towards the front. Okay. And gathering my skirt as I go. See? And I'm gonna go the other way as well, pull the other side, the ending, and gather towards the other way. That way it's even. I don't wanna do all the gathering just on one side and then it's not even. And once I have gathered the width of the skirt, the width of the bodice, still has a little bit to go, then I like to tie the two ends together. That way it doesn't come apart as I'm fixing the ruffles. So I just tie just a tiny tie, not very tight, that I can manipulate later. That way when I'm fixing my ruffles, it doesn't come apart at the waist, where I gathered, and then the gathers come apart. So now I can gather it evenly all throughout the whole thing. So I'm gonna gather it evenly. I'm gonna do the same for my top skirt. This is my bottom skirt. I'm gonna do the same for my top skirt, and then we'll come back to put it together, and then we'll be done. All right, so now my top skirt and my bottom skirt are gathered. Now what I'm gonna do is they're both right side out. I'm gonna grab my top skirt and I'm gonna fit it into my bottom skirt. The wrong side of my top skirt is touching the right side of my bottom skirt. And I am going to pin at those quarter points that I made earlier, if I can find them. There is one. There was one. Yeah, there's one. And then the quarter point of my bottom skirt. So I'm matching it right there. Okay. Now the side seams. I'm going to match those side seams right there. And then I'm going to match that quarter point in the back as well. Here you are. Here you are. and then I'm gonna match that other side seam. Side seam. Side seams. Okay, so now once those are matched up, you know, you can even them out and you can pin a whole lot more in all the different areas. Make sure that it's nice and even. Okay, I'll go back and pin a little bit more in a minute. But then what I want to do is also, after I pin all my areas and they look good and I'm happy with how they're pinned and I'm happy with how the gathers look, you know, you can move around the gathers a little bit if you feel like you need to. We're going to go ahead and grab our bodice, and I'm also going to quarter my bodice just like I did my skirt, because that way I can match up the quarters of my skirt with the quarters of my bodice. There we go. Put that skirt aside. I'm going to grab my bodice and I'm going to quarter it. I already have my 2 side seams, so I just have to go through the front and the back and mark it, mark it, mark it. And we're almost done. Wasn't too hard, was it? Now what we're doing is we're going to grab our skirts and they're going to fit right sides touching my bodice. So I'm turning my skirt inside out, and the right side, this is the right side of the bodice. The right side of the skirt is touching the right side of the bodice. The one bad thing is that my pins are on the inside, so when I go to sew it, I need to make sure that I am removing all the pins as I sew. And you're going to pin right there at those raw edges. Now, if you want to, and you could do this if you want, you can actually baste the 2 skirts on first, baste them together, and then sew them to the bodice. If you don't want to sew it all straight to the bodice, if you're worried that they're going to shift or something like that, and you wanted to sew those skirts together first, you can do that. That is fine. This is up to you. I am not. I'm just going to go and sew and together. Now, one of the things that is on the pattern that I did not do, and I just realized I didn't tell you about it, because I'm not using a very heavyweight fabric. I am not doing because I'm not doing the clear elastic. Also, I'm using a heavier cotton lycra, so I think it can stand the weight of the skirts. The reason why we do the clear elastic is because it helps to keep the shape of the top. Sometimes when you have something that's heavy, it pulls on your dress, and before you know it, you have a droopy mess at the top and your dress is heavier at the bottom. So that's why we do the clear elastic. So what you do for the clear elastic is, before you put the skirt onto the bodice, you would put the clear elastic all the way around the edge of the bodice and sew with a zigzag stitch all the way around. You do not stretch the elastic, you just sew it to the edge of your bodice, and then you attach the skirt like so. So you're just attaching that elastic all the way around, and it will help to keep it smooth and nice. So now I'm gonna go ahead and sew. I always like my ruffles to face up, so that way I can see what I'm eating and how I'm eating them, and if they look even and everything as I'm doing it. So I'm gonna go ahead and sew that up and we'll be done. All right, make sure you look back and you cut everything, all your ruffles, all your bodice. You can go ahead and pull that basting stitch off that you gathered with, and you are done. After you pull that basting stitch, your dress is done. And then I will go back and steam it. If you want to top stitch your bodice and skirt area where they met, you can top stitch. You can top stitch as much as you want. I honestly, sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. I get a little bit worried about top stitching because it turns out so cute. And then if I top stitch, then it's gonna end up, you know, like I might mess up and I just did all this work and it looks so cute. So I need to really just practice my top stitching and stop being scared of it, because whenever I do top stitch, I think it looks so great. But I'm always so scared to do it. So scared. I don't know why. I tell you all not to be scared about sewing, and here I am scared of top stitching. I run away from it. All right, so I'm pulling all this off just because I wanted to show you how cute this dress looks. This is where you can get creative, even more creative. Now that you're done with this part, you can add some colorful buttons at the top. You can add some, we have some really cute cut files on the website that you can do if you have a Cricut machine. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you had a great time. Please let me know if you have any questions about anything that I did or did not do, and I'll try to go over it and answer your questions. Oh, I don't like these pink ones, but maybe some cute buttons, some cute white buttons for mine, because mine is pink. And please let me know if you have any questions about anything that I did. Please comment, like, share. Come visit us on Facebook or Instagram page so you can see what everybody's making and we can see what you're making. I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you all next time.